Welcome to today's episode, brought to you by the Women in Medicine Summit, a transformational CME conference happening September 13th to 14th at the Drake Hotel in Chicago. Engage in leadership programming, learn negotiation skills, receive on-site coaching and mentoring, and see who will win this year's I Stand With Her awards. This year, we're excited to offer unique programming that includes a special session on how using improv comedy can bring fun back into medicine. We also have financial sessions tailored to help you navigate the complexities of personal and professional finances. Discover ways to advance into leadership roles, combat burnout, and either reignite your love for your current role or find joy in a new career path. Don't forget our Friday evening gala, a highlight this year you definitely won't want to miss. Register now at womeninmedicinesummit.org and be part of the movement that is shaping the future of healthcare. Join us to network, learn, and celebrate the power of women in medicine.
Welcome to the Revitalizing Doctor podcast. We explore with our guests how you can move from surviving to thriving as a physician. We know that when you connect with your values and authenticity, you can live a life that is fulfilling and not only good for you, but drives the necessary transformation in healthcare to take better care of our physicians, which means better care for our patients. As 2022 comes to an end, I am excited to tell you about what's on the horizon for Revitalize in 2023. We're going to continue our monthly Rev Rooms, which are free virtual online meetings for women physicians. We are going to move to a standard time, which will be the fourth Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern. Our January topic will be Persuading Authentically and is inspired by the recent book called The Persuaders, and we'll be exploring how this topic relates to what we can do as women physicians. As more than ever, there are so many challenges that we need to be effective in the way we communicate and persuade to make better working conditions for all of us. I would also like to tell you about our next mastermind course, which will be on physician leadership, that starts February 22nd. This will be 6 virtual group sessions along with 2 individual coaching sessions with certified physician leadership coach, my co-founder, Dr. Linda Lawrence. And this program is really designed for women physician leaders about providing resources, support, and accountability to break through barriers and increase your influence and achieve the goals that you need to achieve for you and your working environment. We really believe at Revitalize that we can inspire all of us to become better leaders and transform healthcare to be what we know it can and should be. So if you're ready to go on this ride with us, or you just like to learn more, please set up a call with Linda or me today, and you do that by sending us an email, revitalizmm.info@gmail.com. So without further ado, I am so excited for this week's podcast. I will be going on a holiday break from the pod, and I hope you're going on a break too. So there will be no episode on December 27th or January 3rd, but we will be back on January 10th. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you back in the new year. I am so excited today to have 2 guests. Our very first OB-GYNs on the podcast, Doctors Andrea Barrett and Maria Paasch. They are twin sisters, and they are both OB-GYNs that practice in Savannah, Georgia. They have a very unique story that I am so excited to share with our audience. And we are going to have this episode in season 2 early in the year. And I've told all of you that this season is going to be a lot of the episodes are going to focus on leadership. And you may be wondering, how does this intersect with leadership? Well, I really think we all have to learn to lead our own lives and lead our own lives better. And I really think that Anna and Maria have done so much work on what they value and the direction they want their lives to go, and how that is making their patients' lives better. So I'm so excited to have you both here today.
Thank you so much, Andrea. That was heartwarming.
That was. Thank you. I'm excited to be here too.
So we both met all of us met at the Women in White Coats conference that was back in April. And I learned a little bit of your stories there. And I want both of you to share with our audience how you both decided to become OB-GYNs and then how your practices are evolving now.
Yeah, I can start. Since even as a 5-year-old, I remember wanting to be a doctor. And that never really went away. It wasn't a waxing, waning thing. I always just kind of knew I wanted to help people. And I think I picked that up because our father was a surgeon, and we used to go to the hospitals and make rounds with him. And I remember one particular instance of seeing this woman's face when he walked in the room, and I could just tell that she felt like someone cared about her. And that touched me. Like, I have a vivid memory of it as a child. And I think that's kind of where that all started. So fast forward to college, I'm doing my pre-med kind of stuff. And just in my first year, I haven't even declared a major, I don't think. And then Anna calls me one day and she's like, oh, guess what? I decided I'm going to be a doctor too. And I was like, wait a minute, that was going to be my thing, you know? And I wasn't mad, but I was just kind of like, well, wouldn't it be better if we diversified? And so I accepted it, and moving on, we went to med school at different times. So she started a year before me. I had to reapply, so I didn't get in. A little bump in the road, but I think it was good for us. So since she's a year ahead of me, she ends up getting into the clinicals first. And she comes home one day and she's like, because we shared a house, she comes home and she's like, I decided I'm going to go into OBGYN. And I was like, ew, why? Because at that point I was like, yeah, I was open-minded, but I was like, I don't think I want to do that. Well, that was my very last clerkship. So come a year later, I'm in that clerkship, and I can still remember the moment, like it kind of dawned on me. I was in a triage room in Memphis, Tennessee at the Med in their labor and delivery unit. And they really, like, the students get very involved in the care there. That might have been part of what influenced me to like enjoy it so much. But I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, I like the same thing as her. So it was like kind of what happened with me choosing medicine first and then her choosing OB first. It was really kind of full circle. And I was like, well, that's it. We're going to be the same thing. And that's okay. So it happened very organically. I used to say, OB chose me. I didn't choose it. So
I'm wondering, growing up, did you two choose a lot of the same things, or were you pretty different in high school or in college?
I think we did a lot of the same things. When we were really little, one of my nicknames for people that have known us since birth is Twin A, because I was always the bossy older twin that when we were really small, I spoke for Maria until one day she decided that, she found her voice and she poked our mom and she said, I want to talk about myself. I want to speak for me. And so, but we still continue to have that Twin A dynamic. But I remember, I don't think I tried to not want to do medicine. I just I didn't have that same thing that you did, Maria, when you were 5 and how that's what you wanted to be. And I think maybe I just kind of let that be your dream and just kind of waited to see if I could find mine. And until we got to college and I realized, you know what, maybe that's my dream too. And I didn't feel bad about it until the day that I got accepted to medical school and you didn't. And that was a rough day. I remember finding out that I got into medical school because Maria called me crying.
Oh my gosh. That must have been so hard because Maria wanted it longer.
Right.
And then you get the acceptance letter and oh my God, I can't imagine that.
That was kind of rough. So
it was a yucky day, or a few days.
Right.
Then you just kind of, figure out what you need to do. And
yeah, it worked.
I did not want her to say I'm not going, because I remember strongly feeling that, like, no, you don't need to like hit pause just because of me. Like, I'll figure this out. So
yeah. So we have a theory that they wouldn't let both of us into the same program at the same time because I don't know, maybe they thought we would use telepathy to on our tests or something. I don't know. So that was our running theory. But Maria followed behind me, and again, I was doing clinical rotations first, and I can't remember where in my rotations OB-GYN fell, somewhere in the beginning. And I just remember I started on GYN, so it wasn't even like the miracle of birth that spoke to me. So it was just, I was in the first week of the rotation, and I just felt so comfortable. It just felt natural to me. And I think it's partly because we grew up in a house full of women and grew up around a family of strong women. And it just like, oh, okay, I feel like I'm home here. And so that's kind of how I chose OB-GYN. And I also had some of the same thoughts as you, Maria, about, during medical school, not wanting to want to do OB-GYN because people talked about the call and the malpractice. And it's just, things that medical students aren't really going to use to make their decisions. You kind of have to follow your heart. And so I finally decided that's what I was going to do, and begged her to come to residency where I was. Because again, I was a year ahead. I'd gone to the University of Hawaii. My husband's from Hawaii. And so that's a roundabout way of how we ended up finding out about the program. It was a really good program, and I got accepted there. And so I had her come and do a student internship when I was on labor and delivery. And of course, everybody loved her.
I was hooked.
Yeah. I know there was at one point where you considered ranking a different program above
Hawaii.
the UH. And I was just like, she can't do it. But it worked out. So we were in residency together too.
Right. So that was my next question. So then you both end up in Hawaii for residency, and you don't live in Hawaii now. I don't know how you guys left. I love going to Hawaii.
Oh my gosh. Man. Sometimes I still wonder what we were thinking, but
it was not easy to leave.
Where the universe needed us to be right now. So
yeah. So walk us through the early years after residency, because of course, unique elements of your story, but season 1 of Revitalize, we see this very commonly. Most people that choose medical school have high levels of altruism. They feel very motivated by the connections that they're making with their patients, stimulated through the intellectual pursuit of understanding how the body works. And you're in residency, you master your craft, and then you're out in the real world. I know something changes later down the story, but walk us through that journey the first few years after residency. Are things going great? Are things hard? It's a mix. And then we're going to build up to when you guys move into your new practice. So a little suspense for the listeners.
Honestly, I feel like my first few years out of residency were amazing. Like I feel really good about it. And, we both finished residency in Hawaii, and the thought of leaving Hawaii at that time and trying to go and start to practice somewhere where I didn't know anybody just felt terrifying. I was fortunate. I had a mentor at one of our clinic sites that I worked with for 2 years. It's a rotation that all the residents do in their 3rd and 4th year. And he approached me after the last rotation that I did. And he said he had made this plan to go back to New England with his son and build a boat. Like this was like a dream he had. And he needed to take, I think it was 3 or 4 months of leave. And he asked me if I would be his covering person, which I was super honored by. And so that was my very first job out of residency. And at the same time, there was another mentor that was one of the private docs. In Hawaii, the program is really unique because we have a lot of academic, university affiliated mentors. We have a Kaiser affiliation, and then we also have private docs that mentor us and let us work with their patients. And one of those docs approached me about joining his practice. So I did my 3-month stint at Kaiser, and then I moved over into private practice with a gentleman that had been in solo private practice for 10 years. And it was a really good experience. I have literally nothing bad to say about it. He was a good mentor. He was fair. And we had a really good practice. In fact, the last time we went back to Hawaii, which was just this past summer, I didn't tell him I was coming, but I just showed up in his office and surprised them. And they were all, there was this patient sitting in the waiting room whose baby I had delivered probably about 10 years before. So it was so crazy.
Wow. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was a really good experience. That was my first few years out.
And I worked within the Kaiser system there for 2 years because Anna and I talked, we were like, we do think we'll leave Hawaii and try to get back closer to home just because we were considering starting our own families, and you just need your family. You need your mom.
Right.
So
well,
we
to
knew
be fair, I tried to get mom to move to Hawaii and she wouldn't accept.
That's
And
true.
that basically what had us kind of making our move out of Hawaii, bittersweet though it was. We both conceived pretty much at the same time. Funny story.
Not planned. We did not
Not planned.
coordinate efforts.
Yeah. And so, we stayed in Hawaii. We both had our babies in Hawaii, literally 5 weeks apart. My son was born in May and her son was born in June. And then we left about 2 to 3 months after that to Savannah.
Process and working there initially was like, I don't want to entrench into a private practice and then try to pull out. And, there's just so much bureaucratic tape with that, tail coverage and all that. So working with Kaiser allowed me to work with people that I already knew, work with patients, and it was an enjoyable experience as well. Like, I knew I didn't want to do that model forever, but to be able to live in Hawaii for a couple more years and work with patients doing what I do and have, of course, you need income. It was wonderful. And then having a baby, that was really fun.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool story. And, some of the maybe residents that are listening, as you're thinking about what your life's going to be right after residency, there's so many different paths, but I do think there's some advantages to staying like you did, kind of geographically close to where you trained, because those first couple of years are, you're going to have some cases that are rough, some challenging situations. And it's nice to be around mentors and people that's super easy to reach out. I mean, most
Right.
people in medicine are helpful. And if you go somewhere else geographically, you'll form that network. But, I stayed where I was. I stayed as faculty where I trained, and looking back on it, there's advantages and disadvantages, but I felt like I could really reach out to people when I needed help. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Are you a physician mom with school-aged children feeling utterly exhausted? My friend Dr. Sheeta Shafi invites you to take a little time this summer to join her in a small, intimate group for meaningful conversations. Dr. Shafi is an emergency physician, coach, and mom to 8-year-old twins. She understands firsthand what you're going through. This isn't a pizza party or a yoga class. You'll meet for 2 one-hour sessions twice a month starting in July to help you move out of exhaustion, let go of mom guilt, and live a life you're not only proud of, but can truly enjoy. Connect with her on LinkedIn or Instagram at Sheeta Shafi to learn more. Sheeta is spelled Shideh, and Shafi is spelled Shafie. You can also check the show notes for a link so you can connect with her there as well.
It's a safe
Absolutely.
place to get your comfort zone with your practice. So it felt like I would be jumping out of a nest if I left there. So it was really good. And we both ended up doing our boards also. So we were able to collect all of our cases and sit for our boards and get help from, it was a really great community to be trained in and to practice in and to get those milestones. So I agree. There are some good advantages to that.
So then you guys moved to Savannah. Is that where you're both from?
No, we are originally from Tennessee.
Okay.
Yeah, Maria's already starting to laugh because if you ask her husband what made us choose Savannah, he would say that we pulled out a map and threw a dart at it. But
No, and then he says we actually moved where your sister wanted to move. That's
yeah,
what
he still
he
says
says.
Twin A.
Where you threw your dart.
Yes, where I threw the dart. Once you live by the sea, it's really hard to not live by the sea.
Yep.
We knew we wanted to be in the South because that's where our family was. My husband and I, when I was in medical school, you don't have a lot of money. And so trips are hard to come by and you want to go to places that you can drive to. And we wanted to go somewhere on the water. And so we drove to Savannah and we both just really enjoyed it. And I at least always kept that in the back of my head, like that would be a really lovely place. And so when I started doing my search for like, where do I want to go and what practices might there be in those areas, Savannah really stood out. So when we came here, we literally just decided that's where we're going. And we went and we both started with another practice that was an all-female practice. And it was just not a great fit. And so probably after about 6 months, we took our leave from there. And then we kind of had to figure out what to do. And there was a huge part of me that just wanted to run back to Hawaii, honestly. I don't know if you had the same feeling, but we had some physicians in the community here that reached out to us because I think they thought we were going to leave. And they didn't want us to, which was really heartwarming. And so they kind of rallied around us and helped us to, put together a plan to start our own practice, which it's so funny. All through medical school and all through residency, everyone would ask us, are you guys going to start your own practice when you finish? And I just always remember thinking, I don't want to do that. But in the circumstance that we were in,
seems like such a daunting prospect. So it's kind of like we almost got forced into doing it. Well, not totally forced. We just knew we didn't want the alternative. So we're like, all right, here we go.
right.
But it was a great experience.
And I honestly,
it really still is.
Yeah, I honestly think that it was the best thing that could have happened to us because we learned so much doing that. And I think it allowed us the space to start moving in the direction that we're moving now. I don't know that we would have been able to do that if we had, gone into a corporate medical practice or a hospital-based practice or even a university-based. So I feel like, I don't know, there's just so much growth in the process of that.
It's such an awesome part of the story. And unfortunately, only a few guests that I've had on own their own practice because a lot of my network is emergency medicine. And we don't often own our own practices. There's a few that own urgent cares, but emergency departments are embedded in hospitals. That's really cool. So it sounds like things are going really well. There's a lot of excitement being a new attending, starting your own practice. But I know that there were some things that weren't great and weren't fitting that led you to your new practice of functional medicine. So can you walk the listeners through kind of that time? Because a lot of listeners, frankly, are in that space. They're in what Brene Brown calls the midlife unraveling. It's like the mid-career physician unraveling shitstorm.
Right.
Those are both accurate descriptions of what it feels like. You can kind of feel it in your chest in a way, like a little storm in there.
Yeah. So what did that look like for both of you?
I think the really interesting part about it in hindsight is that we both started to feel it probably at the same time, and we just weren't really sure what it was. But the story that you told about our dad walking into the room to see his patient and just seeing in her face that you've helped me, you care about me, I feel like it was along those lines. I think the way we both usually describe it is by this time we had been in practice probably about maybe 8 years here, 7 or 8 years. And so we had patients that we were seeing every year that we had known for a long time. And we started to just kind of see this theme of they would come in for their yearly visit and they would have some struggles that they felt comfortable sharing with us. And we felt comfortable listening to and offering recommendations and suggestions for help, but then we would see them the very next year and they would still be struggling with the same thing. And we just started to have this feeling of really, it was just a discomfort with, this patient comes in, I do her breast exam, I do her pap smear, maybe we do some other GYN things that she's needing help with. But the thing that she's really struggling with, my heart's breaking because I don't feel like I'm helping her. And I think eventually we just realized that the current system, I'll try not to get too cynical here, but I like to refer to it as the medical industrial complex. It isn't built to allow us to help patients that way. And it started to really feel uncomfortable.
Physically uncomfortable, yeah. Like there's this kind of overriding sense of unease, or it's like more of like an undercurrent feeling, like, why don't I feel fulfilled by that interaction? It's like you almost felt like you left something on the plate. And it was frustrating because, as Anna described, the system doesn't want to fulfill that need or that void for the patient.
Right. And I would say that for me, and I can't speak for you, so you'll have to speak for yourself, but my initial reaction was anger. And I kind of funneled that anger away from my patients for certain and towards things like insurance companies and big pharma and
hospital administration.
Yes, all of those places. And I got to a point where I was like, oh, this is getting dark and I need to do something about it. And my husband told me, you should write a blog. And I was like, why would I do that? But he kept telling me. And so I actually started a blog, and it was very therapeutic because it kind of helped me move through that like I mean, anger is important. It's not always bad. It helps us to keep ourselves safe and to set boundaries. And I feel like that's what I was trying to figure out how to do. And so that writing really kind of helped me figure out where my boundaries are and what my values are. And somewhere in that process is where I found functional medicine. So
I just want to share this quick story with you both, since you're both OB-GYNs. I had my OB-GYN appointment last November, and I had a couple of fairly simple questions and pretty well packaged since I'm a doctor. And she was 45 minutes late for the appointment, which, I pretty much figured that would happen. So I'm not upset. And she walks into the room, has her laptop out, and is like charting immediately, like barely greets me. And just has like this haggard look on her face, which I've had that same look. So I'm still like, I'm not upset. I asked my questions. We talk for maybe like 3 minutes. Then I'm up in the stirrups. My pap is done. The whole thing, I think, was 7 minutes. I saw what the bill was and like what my insurance paid and then what my copay was. I would have paid half of that amount for a true 30-minute consultation. And that's what's so frustrating to me about the current system is that was dehumanizing. Like that's the only word I can use for it. And again, I'm not angry at her because I don't think that's the way she wants to practice medicine. And in fact, one of the things I brought up, she was like, oh, I'm actually doing a functional medicine program. I might have more information for you last year. So she's leaving. She's already decided, but for all the, I know there's a few patients that listen, like my mom. I'm glad that they're listening because we're not okay with this either.
Right. It's demoralizing for us and it's demoralizing for the patients. And as you were telling your story, I was thinking about several patients that I've seen recently that I've sat down and talked with them about a problem. One patient had gone to the emergency room and she had a workup for pain and they saw a fibroid, and we had known about the fibroid for a long time, and what was going on with her was not fibroid related, but they told her to go see me. And so she came in to see me. And so I told her, I said, I don't want you to worry about the fibroid. I think the fibroid is stable. It looks more or less the same, but I think, this is what I think is going on with you, and let's talk about it. And she kept apologizing to me. She's like, oh, I don't want to waste your time with this. And I was like, this isn't wasting my time. I want to help you. I want you to feel better. And I have had multiple patients that do that. Oh, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I don't want to waste your time. Thank you so much for spending time with me. Like, patients have gotten to the point where they feel bad about taking your time. Like, that's the part that's joyful to give. I tried to explain to this patient. I was like, no, I actually love helping people with things like this. I'm not interested in your fibroid right now.
All right, folks, we're going to leave it right there for this week. Be sure to check back next week for part 2 of my wonderful conversation with twin sisters and OB-GYNs, Doctors Paasch and Barrett, as they tell us about their journey into functional medicine. It is going to be such a cool part 2, and I can't wait for you to hear about how they got clear on their values and created a practice that is more enjoyable for them and certainly changing the lives of patients in profound ways. Thanks for listening to the Revitalizing Doctor podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Revitalize Women Physician Circle, founded by Dr. Linda Lawrence and Dr. Andrea Austin, your host. You can connect with us on our website at www.peoplealwayshcc.com/revitalize. You can tweet at us at Revitalize Women, and please connect with us on LinkedIn at Revitalize Women Physician Circle. We look forward to helping you go from surviving to thriving. This podcast represents our opinions and the opinions of our guests. It does not represent any entity that we work for or with, including the military, the government, or any other institution. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon.
Hi, it's Dr. Risa E. Lewis, dropping in to tell you about a book that Dr. Adara Landry and I wrote. It's called Microskills, Small Actions, Big Impact. It's a business self-help book coming in 2024 by HarperCollins. Pre-order now. Microskills, Small Actions, Big Impact, wherever you buy your books.